okay, remember that they're changing my voice. Now, some people who, are out there, they think that because the body is first and foremost spiritual, that it doesn't have application in the flesh. It's very silly, right? So how are you going to obey God while you're in the flesh if your brain, was removed, for example? Okay, you wouldn't be able to. Now, someone else, right, because God didn't choose them, it wouldn't matter if I went brain dead, because you can't, close the one way into heaven and then say, hey, you're the new way. It doesn't work that way. It's the way, the truth, and life. One of the most pronounced statements in all of Christian history is the way, the truth, and the life, right? God sent his only begotten son, not plural, right? Singular, son. And so it overkills for many reasons why I'm right, that I'm Christ, and that this is the end, and so on and so forth. We see all the signs, everything lines up in a way that's irrefutable. This isn't some crazy pastor's theory. This is the truth, the way, the truth. Okay. Going down to Proverbs 22, verse 20, verse 2. A king's wrath strikes terror like the roar of a lion. Those who anger him forfeit their lives. So if there's a bunch of sex cults everywhere, and 23 years or so ago they announced a war on terror, and it says in the verse that I cited before this, in the last chapter, right, Proverbs 19:12, a king's rage is like the roar of a lion, but his favor is like dew on grass. And they're talking about spiritual fertility, which has implications on mere flesh-based reproduction. Okay, what is the war on terror that they're referring to, that your oppressor's referring to? Well, the oppressor's like Jigsaw, right? The Riddler. They like doing things in pieces, like in the movie Star Wars. All the characters are based on satanic ideas, all of them. Okay, the truth, they're superimposed on the truth, like the false image of Christ, right? That's not really Christ, I'm Christ. So who's that person? Okay, it's a jigsaw puzzle. Some of their characteristics are like me, and some of their characteristics are like the devil. And they're trying to confuse, right? Confuse and fusion. So again, if a king's rage is like the roar of a lion, but his favor is like the dew on grass, and a king's wrath strikes terror like the roar of a lion, those who anger him forfeit their lives. What is the war on terror about? It's about sealing people in hell because a bunch of flesh-based sex cult people, want to control reproduction. And they know if they remove the divine element from reproduction, only sluts are going to reproduce with you. And there's some females who are close to the fence. Okay, so if they listen to me long enough, they might say, okay, I'm going to do what this guy says. And for whatever reason, they're so fanatic about it. Even though they know 99.99% of females are nowhere near close to the fence. There's some earth-hugging, scared little girls that never grew up. We know that for sure because we can see in this case that some females have come around and they didn't defect and rally and obey God through me. The evidence is clear. We see a 100% sample rate where every one of those samples, sample rejection rate, every one of the people involved in this case who's a female, especially attractive females, they rejected the possibility, They rejected the irrefutable and sound fact that only a fucking worm would reject obeying God through me. They rejected it. Why? Because they're not the children of God. They're not. There's no other way to look at it. When God says, hey, you, obey my son, then you're not the righteous who are as bold as a lion. You're not. There's no other way to look at it. And you see how those scriptures line up? They're lying up to you with their propaganda like they always do, right? Politician, police, military propaganda, the schools, the colleges. You know that they're full of BS. I mean, when you have colleges labeled liberal colleges and conservative colleges, what the hell? Are you teaching the truth or are you teaching political propaganda? They just taught you to be a liar. The way is not propaganda. The way is the truth. Okay, in verse 5, it goes on to say, the purposes of a person's heart are deep waters, but one who has insight draws them out. So when we look at the deep, right, the purposes of a person's heart, it says deep waters, but the best way to interpret this is they're not talking about me at all. It's one way to look at it. Okay, another way to look at it is that figurative sense of the word deep, right? That's deep and spiritual, but not kind of Masonic and scientific and kind of occultic, which is, when the sun goes down, when the sun sets. Okay, so it's going to say at some point that the king's hearts are unsearchable. And so once you look at the two scriptures, you say, well, the easiest way to interpret it is they're not talking about me, right? The most direct way. They're both true. Okay. It's like the same thing said differently. So the purposes of a person's heart are deep waters, but one who has insight draws them out. Okay. And it says, that elsewhere in Proverbs, it says that it is the glory of God to conceal a matter. It is the glory of kings to search them out. So I'm the one who's supposed to weigh the heart, right? The top martial arts, right? Not some scientist or some preacher. They don't know what they're doing. You can't be the typical scatterbrained preacher and unfocused and reckless and aimless and senseless and just living by mere human rules and customs and traditions with psychology and in a church where people can't tell who's a child molester and who isn't because their spirits are the same. And then say that you magically know how to find the purpose of a person and help them reach their true potential, right? It is laughable. I'm sure we can all agree that that's fair. The truth will set you free. Those who think that it shouldn't be said in a way that is direct and potent, okay, want you to be enslaved, and that's not fair. Okay. Next verse, many claim to have unfailing love, but a faithful person who can find. See, it says a faithful person who can find, which goes back to, gathering up the wind, right? Holding, gathering up the wind with the hands. Who has gathered up the wind in his hands, right? Who has wrapped up the waters in his cloak? Who holds the wind in his fists? Okay? So he's gathering up the wind of kind of, in a sense, one way to look at it is it's chaos, right? Who has outmaneuvered, set the deity of chaos and truly gathers up the wind. It's like, imagine if some MMA fighter was trying to take me on, or some angry military guy or some angry police officer. Without them sabotage me, fume me, nothing. So they're throwing blows and I'm dodging them. I'm like, and I'm boom, and I'm hitting them there, and I'm breaking them down, right? So who are their moves working for? They're working for me. So who is the inhabitants of the world working for unwittingly and to their own detriment? Because they're rebelling against me, they're working for me. You cannot maneuver the top martial arts. Who the hell do you think you are? I am who I am. Who the hell are you? Okay, you're like, oh, no, they're going to do it our way. Yes, we're going to hack his brain. Like, it's fucking retarded. You think you can thwart God's plan by hacking his son's brain? What, were you born yesterday? Like, what? Do you understand anything at all? Anyway, some things shouldn't have to be explained. That's like on the top of the list. So we go down to verse 7. Okay, so again, when it says a faithful person who can find, right? Who can find someone who's faithful with unfailing love, right? It directly points to Proverbs 31, where it says a wife of noble character who can find, right? That phrase, they like that formula where the phrases connect to each other. Who can find a wife of noble character? Who can find somebody with unfailing love who's faithful to God and so on, to the king and so on and so forth? And of course, I'm the king of kings. Now I'm kind of thrown off by this thing. I had to stop it several times, so I'm just going to cut this short soon. Hopefully it's under 10 minutes when I put the pieces together. They do a lot of stuff to interrupt me to cause that to occur. It's a long story. Okay. So so now we go to this. We'll end with this verse here. Verse 7. It says, the righteous lead blameless lives. Blessed are their children after them. Okay, so who can find you pick grapes from grape bushes, right? It's going to be pick grapes from the vines.